Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is the very first episode of Vox&Hops. I'm Matt McGackie. Some of you may know me as the lead singer of the extreme metal band Cryptopsy, but now I am taking my stab at the podcasting world. Let me tell you a little bit about Vox&Hops. Vox&Hops is about in-depth conversation with metal musicians about their lives, metal music, and most importantly, about craft beer. You see, I come from Montreal. Montreal right now is a serious hotbed in the craft beer industry. There are a whole slew of amazing breweries that are just pumping out amazing products week after week after week. And throughout the past years, I've been really just diving deep into the craft beer scene up here. Being a touring musician, I've had the chance to taste beer all around the world, and I have to say that some of the best beers that I have tasted are right here in my home province of Quebec. So I wanted to share some of this great craft brew experiences with some of my metal musician friends and with all of you out there in the world, because I think that the Montreal beer scene needs more exposure and more people should know about it. A huge opportunity of being a touring musician is to get to know people. You meet people, you spend 3 weeks with them on a tour bus or in venues and backstages, and you end up talking to them and exchanging stories about your lives. And it's always those stories that I love sharing when I get back home and talking to my friends. So those two aspects really inspired Vox&Hops. I wanted to meet up with my friends that I've met on the road, sit down, share amazing local Quebec craft beers with them, and swap amazing stories, get to know them better, find out about the person who is making this music that I'm so in awe of, and I want to see who these people are, what makes them tick, what makes them move, what makes them be creative. I want to find out what they're doing at home when they're not on tour being a metal musician, because a lot of the times there can be a lot of oppositions there where you see the most brutal person on stage and they happen to be 9 times out of 10 the softest, quietest, nicest people that have really, really surprising day jobs if you actually get to the bottom of it and you actually ask them about it. Last year during my sabbatical, I took a year off to stay home with my 2-year-old daughter, and I was a stay-at-home dad, and through that time I discovered the world of podcasting. I was not into it before. I knew it existed, but it was just something that I didn't have the time to look into, and throughout that year with my daughter, I found myself having some free time where I could explore it. I discovered the Jasta Show, Off Camera with Sam Jones, The X-Man, to name a few. That's what gave me the idea to do my own podcast. Great conversations with some of my friends where we could meet up, share amazing craft beers, and talk about metal, music, and their lives. My first guest on the podcast was an easy choice. I went with one of my oldest friends, someone who I respect immensely, and his name is Danny Marino. Some of you know Danny Marino because he's from the Agonist, which is a metal band based out of here in Montreal, and we grew up in the local metal scene side by side. I wanted to start off this podcast endeavor with someone that I was extremely comfortable with, that I could make mistakes and not be worried, and I'm quite content with the final outcome. So here is my conversation with Danny Marino. I hope you enjoyed as much as I do.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, how's it going? I'm here with Danny Marino from The Agonist, and this is the very first episode of Vox&Hops podcast. Danny, tell me, what's been going on? I was with you all weekend at Heavy MTL. You really hooked me up, gave me a solid, squeezed me in there on that guest list, that hometown guest list. I know it's such a pain in the ass.
Well, first of all, I'm honored to be the first guest on Vox&Hops podcast. It's a really cool idea, and you're one of my oldest friends, so it's really cool to be a part of this. And lately this weekend was Heavy MTL, as you said, and it was really good. It was our 3rd time playing, but honestly it was my favorite of the 3 times. The experience from the stage to just the hangs and the people and everything about it, it was just a great weekend, other than the ridiculous storm that hit for about 10 minutes and soaked everyone. But that wasn't even on our day, that was on the day before. But I think it was kind of cool that it brought out the animalistic hardcore metalhead side of the people that were stuck in the pits of the various stages as it happened, and it got very primal in the mosh pits. I was watching Ginger at the time that it happened, and it got really intense, and the band were feeding off that, and then they got more intense. So it was pretty cool. Even though I was not in that, I was far back because my days of being in the front row are over at this point.
Depends. You never know. What, that's a good side question. What band would bring you out of mosh retirement?
The thing is, the bands that like hit me that hard that like make me lose my shit are not the most moshable bands. So like Opeth would be that band for me, but I would just headbang my face off to Deliverance or something, which I've done.
There you go, that big breakdown at the end.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. The last time I got in a mosh pit was for Meshuggah, but that was like 7-8 years ago.
On the way here, I read Simon, the drummer of the Agonist, Simon McKay, wrote this epic Facebook post.
Love letter to Emperor.
Yes, about his rain experience at Heavy MTL. So he's standing in this pit. The skies open up, turn black, and just unleash a fury of downpour water on top of this fan. And he's standing front row, and they haven't played Montreal in 19 years, I think.
Yeah.
And it just created this emotional whirlwind where everyone's just screaming Emperor's name, chanting them.
Yeah, because it just so happened that it happened right before they were supposed to come out. So it basically was their intro light sequence was a thunderstorm.
It's just too perfect.
Yeah. When Ginger finished, I went and caught the last half of their set, and it was one of my favorite sets of the whole fest as well.
Yeah, for me, it would be Gojira top.
Yeah.
Excluding Friends.
No.
You guys had it for me. Strong set
Gojira,
as well.
And then Emperor, and then I'm not really sure from there. To be honest, I didn't see that many bands because what happens when you're at these things with so many friends everywhere and different bands that are playing that are friends, and then you have to do interviews and all this shit that you miss so many bands that you maybe wanted to see, but you have to make time for those special ones.
I enjoyed that Between the Buried and Me. We caught that together.
Yep.
That was a good one. Who backstage run-ins did you cross anyone that you were
Havoc guys
slightly that you've known before, or that you're slightly awestruck or?
I saw Gojira eating lunch. They sat down to eat just as I walked into the catering, and I was like, I'm not going to go and introduce myself like just as he's about to have his lunch, Joe and them. And I saw Matt Heafy from Trivium, but I didn't. I actually met him before anyone knew who he or the band was, because they played here on some showcase in a tiny little club called El Salon. If you remember that room.
I do remember that room, but I don't remember that show.
I went with my brother Mike, who he used to play with. He asked me, he said Roadrunner Records is having this like showcase of the young new talent that like they haven't even released their album yet, and there was 3 bands that were all on Roadrunner, and I don't even remember the other 2 because they never went on to be anything. I think they got dropped after the first record, but Trivium was opening from the 3, and I didn't know who they were. I just went because my brother was like, it's $10, let's go. And I was like 18, and I went, and then I was like, holy shit, like, because it was like you don't see a band like that at El Salon, even though by now I'm not like a super fan, but when I was 18, like
it affected you.
Yeah. And they were like so obviously pro and above the other bands that they were playing with, so it's kind of obvious why they
are where they are now.
Yeah.
So a big part of Vox and Hops is my love of beer. But I'm not just a love of any beer. I'm a love of craft beer.
As am I.
And that's something that we bonded on in the past. So with me today, I brought 2 beers which we will be tasting and enjoying throughout the podcast, keeping ourselves nice and lubricated, but not overly lubricated. That's for after the podcast. Toasty, I like that. So the first one is a Farmhouse Citra, which is from Brasserie Milles Iles, which is a brewery which is from Terrebonne, which is north of Montreal. And it started in 2008 when a dude who used to work at Brasserie Milles started brewing on his side, and then he hooked up with his brother-in-law, who's more the business side of it all. And fast forward to now, they have a few solid beers out there. Out of all the ones that I've tasted, this is my favorite. It's their Farmhouse Citra, so it's like a farmhouse style beer with mono Citra hop.
I very much enjoy the farmhouses. It's quickly becoming my one of my favorites, whereas it didn't immediately. The farmhouse funk and the hay and the barn and the whole, like, all that taste. It's really cool as, like, it works in the summer and it works any time of year, really, but it's just this nice thing where you get, it's very complex. You can taste, like, many different flavors going on in them, whereas some other beers, it's more obvious. It's like straight hops is, like, you know, or it's like stouts, it's like chocolate, coffee, whatever. But all right,
cheers. I agree with all of that. I love the funk. It's an acquired taste. It's like as if my palate had to develop to actually appreciate the funk.
Yeah, because then there's the funky sour, and then there's the funky saison.
That's
so this
right.
is more the funky saison.
I agree.
Yeah, and I like both of them.
So cheers. It's delicious.
And it's very nice.
Very refreshing, fruity, but with that tangy, earthy, exactly the hay, fresh cut grass.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. The grass thing for
really,
sure.
Really, really
this
good.
one. But this one also has it's still, there's some hops in there.
Yeah, but it's not the Citra heavy.
Right, they use those, that's it.
Which is one of the big
Citra hops.
Citra hops, the Amarillo, gives it that fruity tropical taste.
Yeah, this is lovely.
I really like this one, yeah. I think it's just a limited one, sadly. Color-wise, it's like a hay color, a hazy...
Yeah, juicy, hazy.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Right up my alley.
Like pineapple juice.
Yeah. So if we had to describe this beer in a person, who would it be? Any person you meet on the street, anywhere in the world. I'll take another sip just to close my eyes, just imagine. It's a game that I play with my wife, this.
I picture an older gentleman who's like, not old, but like in his 50s, but like used to be kind of wild, but he's like, now he's like wearing like a Hawaiian shirt that's open and he lives on a beachside town kind of thing, and like he's got a lot of wear in his face because he's seen a lot of shit when
His name is Ralph.
Yeah.
This is Ralph, the experienced ex-partier.
Yeah, but he's very like somehow wise,
chill and wise,
even though it's like someone would see him and think like, who's this riffraff? But then you sit down with him and he's, oh, this guy is deep. Like,
well, there you go.
That's the guy I see from this beer.
That's the Farmhouse Citra from Brasserie Milles Iles from Terrebonne. It is now the Ralph, the chill ex-party guy. He's basically from the Big Lebowski, the chill dude.
That was, yeah, kind of that guy, sort of. But he's not fat for some reason. The guy
he's still fit somehow.
Yeah.
He cycles in the morning.
He does yoga.
There you go. What is your favorite local beer? If you had to pick one. You could pick 3 if it makes your life easier, because that would make my life easier.
I think, okay, let me start with brewery.
Okay.
I think my favorite Quebec brewery, if I had overall from Spectrum, is Dunham, because they're able to do so many things so well. I've never had a Dunham where I'm like, I don't like that at all, or just like, that's whatever. It's always like, at least that's very good.
There's one that I tried that I think I just wasn't ready for it, which was the Berliner Melonweiss.
Yeah.
That was when I first bought that. I was still like on a hop craze, and I was like, what is this? It's interesting. I remember I drank it with my friend Phil Ramsey, and he was like, well, I don't like this, I'm not sure. And we finished the bottle, but I'm sure I'd appreciate it more nowadays.
Oh yeah, that's the one that honestly kicked me off.
Yeah,
because like, I had only it wasn't like I'd never had a sour before. I could see how if that's your first sour, because it's really intense, that it would be like, what the fuck? But I had had a couple by then, and I started to get into it, and then that one just kicked my ass. And I grew up when I was a kid loving sour candies. Like, I love that taste. And I love things that are sour or like pickled, any flavor like that I'm into. So I think that's why it agrees with me.
It's an easy transition.
But I think the thing is, then I noticed Dunham does a lot of sour based things, and I thought, okay, so they're like the sour. But then I had a Saison Rustique, and then I had an IPA, and then I had the Siakawa Stout, the Costa Rican coffee stout. It was like, everything's just so good. So, I mean, there's a lot of really great breweries in Quebec. And if they're my favorite, there's others that are just behind them. It's not like they're far and away.
Just last weekend, I went to Dunham. You had told me that you had been there, and I sort of planned like a family vacation around beer, because that's how I operate. My wife is patient. And we went there with the kids. We always find like breweries that accept children either on the outside patio, the terrace,
it's a nice area
inside, and it's beautiful. It was a beautiful day. We were out there. The beers were amazing. They had decent food. And I went in the gift shop, and I'm like buying some beers, and they have beers in the gift shop which are not available out in the public, which is super interesting. And I asked the lady who was serving me, I was like, who does the artwork? And she's like, that guy right there.
Oh, you met the guy?
Yeah.
I knew there was a guy.
I think his name is Francois, but I could be crazy. Yeah. You can text me and message me if I'm wrong. So I go out and I just shook his hand, and he has like a workshop upstairs where he paints all the stuff on site. It's amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Art's really cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. You know him. You can like maybe
just like
contact him someday for a design of something.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a great idea. Yeah,
T-shirt.
Number 2.
Well, I can't say that it's like for sure number 2, but just in general, I'm very, very impressed with the emergence of La Gabière. Of course, they're very specialized in IPAs. They do some other things, but that's their main thing. And I think they're on par to compete with a lot of the U.S., New England brewers like Alchemist and all those guys that everyone thinks is the best in the world. Mm-hmm. So it's cool that they're...
I tried Tamayar 2 years ago, I want to say, and I did not like it. Oh. But I don't know if it's my palate wasn't ready for it or if they changed the recipe.
Yeah, well, it's subjective.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I like it now. We've known each other a long time, as you mentioned before. And, you know, if people don't know, I used to play in a band called 3 Mile Scream, which was with Danny's older brother, Mike. And if it wasn't for Mike Marino, I most probably would not even be here today. I'd be alive. But I think a part of me, I don't know if I would have had the drive at that time in my life to really pursue music actively and actually get into a real project. So Mike sort of like went and found me, dragged me out, and held my hand throughout the early years of my musical career before in the formative years of 3 Mile Scream, before we went and got signed and everything that happened from that. So I always credit a lot to your brother. That being said, my earliest memory of meeting you was at a 3 Mile Scream jam. You came out, and this leads me to my next question, which is, tell me about you growing up. What was your life like? What kind of a kid were you? Start with that.
Growing up, I had almost no interest in playing music whatsoever until I was about 13, 14 years old. I was heavy into sports. I was very active. I was heavy into imagination. Like I was creative, but just pretty much the same way that someone who grows up and their parents are accountants and then they end up being heavy metal musicians because it's like, fuck that, I'm going to rebel. I grew up in a house where everyone was a rock musician. There was guitars everywhere. My dad was, well, he still is. He still plays like is a rock band, in rock bands and that. My brother started getting in rock bands, then metal bands. My uncles are all musicians. So it's just like it was everywhere all the time, and I was just like, whatever, that's what they do. I'm like, so I was like into, like I said, sports because I just loved being active in general. But then on the creative side, I was into everything like that was animation related, comic books, like Japan anime specifically, I thought was really interesting. All that, video games, and specifically the video games that had deep storylines, not just like shoot these guys. Like it's like it had to be like a Final Fantasy RPG or something like this, you know. So that creative thing has always been in me, and I used to draw comic book characters and write stories and all lines for all the characters and all this stuff. And then I don't even know what the day was like that I played bass for the first time. My brother was a bass player.
And I know your father was a bass player.
Yeah, so. Originally my dad was also a bass player. It's his first instrument, but I mean, he plays guitar like in bands and everything. So I basically started playing bass at around 13. I picked it up for no real reason. I think it was, I enjoyed listening to music, but not like I was a super fan, but like it would play in the house a lot because my dad would play music. And it would be like, you know, Jimi Hendrix and Cream and the Rolling Stones and all this kind of stuff, and the Beatles a lot. The Beatles was probably my favorite thing that he would play. And then I think it was like Cream, Sunshine of Your Love, or one of those things. And it was like I basically picked up the bass and yeah, exactly.
Just picked it up by ear. You picked up a bass and just played it.
I picked it up and tried to figure it out, and I figured it out. And my dad, like, I couldn't play it in time because that, for someone who's never played an instrument, takes a long time. But I figured out the notes so that I could hit them. And my dad was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, you did that just on your own." You know what I mean? And then I started to try and do other things, and then my dad showed me like basics, like this is where your finger goes, and here's a scale. You know, this is a basic major scale and a minor scale, and then stuff like that. And then, but that was pretty much it. Like, I didn't have any lessons ever, no training, no nothing like that. And from there, though, it wasn't like as if from 13 onward I was just like, I want to be a musician.
And take my soccer clothes and burn them.
Yeah, no. I was still full on into sports and animation and all that stuff. And I, at that time, was thinking that, like, yeah, I'd like to be like a video game designer or something like that, or one of these things. And it really started to take hold after like 14, 15. I switched to guitar because I heard some guitarists that were
what
like,
would be those guitarists that triggered that switch?
My uncle Frank Marino was an obvious one, but then
for people listening at home, Danny's uncle Frank Marino happens to be like a major rock star from the 70s primarily.
Yeah.
So
Mahogany Rush was the group. But I mean, his name is probably more known than Mahogany Rush at this point. So there's that. But then Hendrix, Santana, Angus Young from AC/DC. And actually, my first album that I ever bought was actually Aerosmith, Get a Grip, on cassette tape. So that's the one with like Crying and Crazy and Living on the Edge. Living on the Edge was like my favorite fucking song. And at the time, I thought Joe Perry was the coolest. Then I started hearing other guitar players, and I was like, "Oh!" But Aerosmith was my first real big concert that I went to at 14, and then AC/DC the next year, and that was like the kicker. Then I just wanted to play rock music.
And these are all concerts that your father brought you to.
My brother Mike,
just Mike alone.
Yeah, me and Mike. I went.
That's really badass.
I was 13, so he was 18.
Okay, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
And that just, it still wasn't a thing where I was like, I want to be that guy. It was like, I just really enjoyed playing guitar and learning how to do things, and specifically learning how to do things so that I could write songs, because I pretty much started writing songs immediately. That's all I cared about, and that's still what I care about.
Learning covers wasn't a thing for you?
Rarely. I would learn like
licks.
Yeah, it's like this riff of that song. I know so many of those. I know so few covers back to back where I could join a cover band and play them. It's like I just know like that lick from Hell's Bells, and that lick from Pantera, and that lick from, because I learned those, and I'm like, that's cool, and I see what he's doing there,
and then you can get inspired and pull that technique almost into a songwriting type.
That's it. You know, I'm not saying it's like that's how everyone should be. It's definitely in a way it's been really great for me, but in a way it's also a hindrance, because other people who are more disciplined to like just force themselves to learn something the proper way, note for note, they end up getting a certain benefit of like practice out of that in terms of technique improvement and versatility or whatever of different techniques. So in a way, I wish I did spend more time on that stuff, but at the same time,
you were juggling, sports also. Was sports still there, or
it was fading by the time? Basically, through my teenage years, guitar took up more time and sports took up less time.
Okay.
And so the only thing I was doing was I was playing basketball still, but like
what did you used
not
to play?
competitively.
You did basketball. You did.
I did baseball, then soccer, then volleyball.
This was every summer.
Yeah.
Or like yearly?
I'm saying I was on baseball teams first. That was like my first teams that I was on. Then I was on soccer teams a couple of years later, and then volleyball and basketball. And then like by the end though, basketball, it wasn't competitive. I would just go to the park with my friends and we'd have like pickup games and stuff like that. But that's it. So guitar kept taking up more and more time. And then also I joined my first, like, not even a real band, but guys that I jammed with in a garage, literally a garage band from high school that were like they were in like the band, the concert band, like with the horns and all that stuff. I wasn't in that because I only learned to read music by the time I was like 20 or something like that, because I forced myself to learn some basics for thing. And it's just I never taken like formal music lessons like that.
Yeah, me neither. I can't read a single thing. It's all by ear. That's why I need Donaldson to tell me when I'm good or not.
But I would say this: I am a strong proponent of people that do use music theory. And so like I use music theory, I just don't write it on a staff. Like I don't like dealing on everything in terms of tabs and visuals on the guitar neck only, like, because I like to have a certain amount. I use theory to my advantage in the chord changes and in the chord placements and things like that, but it's not to the degree of like, you know, an orchestra kind of.
There's no rules almost.
There's no rules,
which is a fun thing about metal.
To understand
what the rules are and how you can play with them.
Exactly, how to bend them and all that stuff. It's very beneficial, and every musician I've met has a blend of feel and theory tends to find more complete.
Okay, and write more
interesting
songs,
music,
and more like human music, almost like with a pulse. You mentioned your uncle Frank Marino. You went through the other thing. Have you ever like turned to him in like hard times during the band for like business advice? Is that something that a card that you've played or can play
early on?
Okay,
when you first got professional, so to speak, when we first got our first record deals and first tours and all that, and you know, he gave me his advice, and I feel like the thing is that he's from a very different time than what we experience. That time had things that were a lot better for musicians, but then had other things that were not as good for aspiring musicians. There was very few opportunities to be had, but when you got an opportunity, it was like from rags to riches, and that's just the way it is. That's how it works, and it's not how it works anymore.
No, there's no breakout rock stars, extremely rarely now. And
that's you know, and so to be honest, he told me don't sign the deal.
Oh yeah, okay,
yeah. And I didn't listen, and
you haven't spoken to him since.
No, but it's just I knew the way it worked, and I knew what I was getting into, and so did he. But he's basically said, well, you shouldn't, and I said I'm willing to do it. Like, I understand.
He was being protective of you.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Because you're a family member.
Yeah, he was. It wasn't.
And
like
he's seen what
resentful. He was truly trying to protect me, because he's like, I wouldn't do that because I feel like if I'm gonna put out music and tour and all that, then I should be paid really well and compensated very well and be comfortable and everything.
Which is how it was more so back in the day with the advances, which were a bit more generous, let's say.
Yeah. And the thing was that I know now that if I didn't sign that, I definitely wouldn't have done any of this. I just know it.
It's that moment, yeah.
We were very lucky to receive that contract. It's not because I don't think we don't musically deserve it. I think there's tons of bands that musically deserve it that don't get it. It's that it came through by happenstance, because Chris Donaldson, who plays in your band, Cryptopsy, had just joined Cryptopsy. He was the new guy. And he went on, I think, his first ever European tour with them. And he met the head of the European division of Century Media. And then he showed him that he was mixing our band. And we were just some local nobody band.
That's right. Shout out to Life.
Yeah. Life Jensen. And then I got an email a few days later in my old Hotmail account. This is how far back it was. And it was like from Chris. And he says, hey, dude, I'm talking to Life Jensen, and he really likes your music. And I'm like, who's that? what? And he's like the head of Century Media over here. He says your band's really awesome and that you should send him the full album when it's ready. And like I'm like in my underwear, it's like 9 a.m. on a Saturday, and I'm just like hyperventilating.
There's that moment, all those times, all those hours in the jam room.
Yeah,
that moment.
And it's like, yeah, we were springboarded too. There's a lot of bands, especially now. This was back in 2006, but there's a lot of bands now where that kind of thing is really rare. Like a band getting signed now, they've already done like a couple tours, DIY, full style, like across the
demos,
North America,
EPs.
They've done a lot of those things. They've done all these different, like we had never toured before.
Self-released.
Yeah, we did a lot of shows, all local. Like just whatever show we could get on, we would play.
You do have that
for 3 Mile Scream.
That's right. That was fun times.
Opening for Mythosis, which is Chris Donaldson's old band. And it's like, but yeah, that just it was like a springboard from local to across North America in a few months.
Just touring.
Yeah, our first tour was opening for Sonata Arctica, and it was just us and them.
That's amazing.
So we were direct support. We had a 45-minute set playing theaters, and the thing is, back then, Sonata Arctica in North America drew over 1,000 people a night, and we'd never played to more than like 300 people.
That's right, yeah. That must have been amazing.
It was amazing. It was a learning experience. We never did any of it. We never drove a van across the continent. I'd only been to like New York City.
Or being that together for that long with that group of people in a tight, confined space longer than
in a van.
A few days is
not even a real
challenge.
Van. Like now we have like a full, the E350, what most bands have. It's like a pickup truck with a van attached, so it can haul and it's strong and a workhorse. The van we got because we had no money was like a joke. It was like a car in the inside, but it just had a van shell around it. And it was like a death trap if you drove anywhere with like ice or anything like that. It couldn't grip the road or handle the trailer or nothing.
That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. What was worse? Let's say like you guys finished Once Only Imagined, and then you went into the studio for Lullabies for the Dormant Mind. Did you guys have that like sophomore slump fear? Can we do it again? Or were you just confident that this was going to roll?
No, we didn't, because that was a huge jump for us. Like I find if you hear those two records, you can hear the band become professional at that point.
I completely agree that the songs are at a different level. Yeah. I just don't know. So I guess you guys, the touring and all that, you guys just sort of grew as musicians at that time.
Huge inspirations from those tours. Every night watching bands like Enslaved and The Faceless and Arsis, and these bands that we toured with that were a lot heavier and a lot darker than what we were doing, but it really appealed to me. And Simon, our drummer, was already fully there when he joined the band.
And if I remember, he didn't partake in any of the writing.
Yeah, so
shout out to my friend Derek Nadal, though, who was there.
Yeah, so you'll hear the drumming change drastically too, because Derek's all about like the groove and hardcore vibe kind of thing. So, and then Simon is pure death and black metal. Especially back then. Now his music taste has evolved into many places, but back then he was pretty deep, death metal.
I feel you guys had I remember you telling me you had to like hold him back a bit.
Yeah. To
reel him in a bit so that he could fit.
On later albums.
Not so much on Dormant.
On that one, I just full out.
Okay.
So lots of blasts and lots of, fast double bass everywhere and things like that. And it's great. It fits the album. And our new album is more like that again,
leading in that direction. So there was no stress with the follow-up, which is interesting.
Well, okay, sorry, there was stress in terms of it's just a stressful thing in general to
release new music.
And because also we went out on that first record, and like I said, some of the tours we did were really, really heavy, and we were not always well received because of that. We had a girl singer.
Which sang. Which back then was somewhat more rare compared to nowadays.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not just that it's rare. It's like the fact that it's rare is a good thing for you. It makes you unique and stand out and all that. But if it's the certain type of crowd that's really extreme, 50% of them are just not going to go for that.
Yeah, they have their arms crossed, staring at you, tough guy.
Yeah, so there was some of that, and so we did get a bit of fear about, like, can we compete? And also, like, the technicality of the bands that we were playing with and all that, and the musicianship and everything.
So that encouraged all of you as a band to step up.
To step up on
the next level, the next record.
We knew what we wanted. I wanted to take the darkness and intensity from those bands, but still retain the songs from our band, because I knew that we had songs. Mm-hmm. We have hooks and emotions and dynamics to the music, and I needed that. I can't not have that, like, for me, for this band at least. And so it's like, how can we do that? And that's from there. It was like Lullabies and Prisoners and so on, and it's like, that's, you can hear that evolution.
So what was worse? That follow up, or when you guys went in and came in with Vicki for the first time? Was that a stress that the old fans wouldn't accept her? Because little backstory, you've talked about it at length. I'm sure you don't want to beat a dead horse. Alyssa, who's now an arch enemy, was in the Agonist, is no longer with the Agonist, and you guys went and found a new singer who's called Vicki, and she's amazing. So when you guys recorded The Eye of Providence, were you stressed when you released that album that the old fans would give her a hard time, or you just didn't care, you guys had accepted her, and that's it?
Yeah, there definitely was stress surrounding that. There was sort of a fear of the unknown, but at the same time, we were so happy. Like, there's this, the weight of worrying about what the people are going to think, but there was a huge other weight that was lifted at the same time, which was the weight that was on the band, which was our relationship with Elisa, which was horrible. Basically, we had a very bad relationship, especially by the end. All of the band and her, like, it was negative. People were coming to me on tour saying, I don't know if I can do this anymore, dude, if there's another tour. And she didn't say those words to me, but her personality gave off the same vibe that she was miserable on tour.
Just a toxic sort of,
so everyone was miserable with each other
in a van.
So
people have to imagine
later is in buses in Europe and stuff like that, but still
it's always tight, confined spaces.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's like, it was just really negative. And then also there was the fact that we had some great material written that I had
before Elisa left.
While she's in the band, like, and is just not getting done, never getting. And we are not allowed to write our own vocals with her. You're not allowed to write a lyric. You're not allowed to do any of this. And so we just had to wait. And it's like, and we're worried about, like, what's going to happen. Like, we're miserable on the road. She doesn't want to write any music.
You're miserable at home.
It's like, what's happening here,
So
all that weight was lifted. But then the new stress of what if this doesn't work was there. Yeah. So I think we probably were around the same place because of that give and take. But
it ended up just balancing out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what we did, though, in terms of, it was almost like a little test that, I don't know if you remember, but we released 2 songs like well before the album came out.
No, Vicki. I don't remember that. Sorry.
Yeah, so we released
from the
same 2 songs. Like, they're on Eye of Providence already, but they're like a demo recording. That was done because
to test the waters and to
what we said was we don't want to announce her and then have months of no music after announcing her, right?
Yeah.
So what we should do is we'll announce her and then we'll immediately put a song out so people get a taste.
We'll just put a side note out here right now. I had heard that Elisa was no longer in the band, and I get this phone call from Danny. He knows what I'm going to say because I've told this to him. But he calls me, and I know he's going to call me because I think your brother told me or something, I can't remember. And in my mind, I'm like, please don't ask me to replace Elisa in the Agonist. I was like, in my back of my mind, I was like, maybe I could pull off a tour, but I can't step up there and become the new singer of the Agonist because I just don't think that I would be a good fit. I just don't fit into the costumes. I do have beautiful hair. So finally it ended up being just to sit down with Vicki and to speak about some screaming techniques, which, you know, she really didn't need to have that conversation. She already knew what to do, and she took it in the right direction. But I was very relieved, and I had some stress about that. but I would have still been honored. Was there ever a moment that when Elisa finally left that you thought the band was over?
No.
You always had it that we'll find someone, doesn't matter.
Yeah, because it's like there's no way I'm giving up on that.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And how did you come about finding Vicki?
Well, basically, we knew that we were going to need a new singer. We knew that there was no hope in terms of dealing with schedules and all that stuff with Elisa. And we started to think about who can do this. And we thought about local people like Matt, like other people. We only knew guys really that were at the level we needed. And we're just like, I don't know if we should switch, you know, genders. And in this band, it's different. It's a totally different vibe, all that. Then thought about, okay, who do we know that we don't know personally, but in the industry, there wasn't really anyone that we felt was like fit well from just our knowledge. There was some also that like, well, they're already extremely successful. Why would they leave their band for us, kind of thing? So there wasn't much options off the top like that. So we started to look for unknown talent. Luckily, it's 2014 or whatever it was, and you can use YouTube and you can use whatever and all these different sources. And so we came across a number of people, about 4 total, that were like contenders, so to speak.
So they're just people that you found on YouTube that are already just posting their own covers.
Yep. Or their own bands.
Or of their own bands.
Their own bands or their
scoured, female-fronted metalcore bands.
Just like metal covers, metal, and then female metal singers and all this stuff. And it was pretty obvious, like, of the 4 we found, that like she was far and away, like the other 3 never even got close. There was no official auditions with us, you know, and like it was clear, like, why bother with that person if she's interested. And contacted her originally because this is still before it's announced, because Arch Enemy hadn't announced, we hadn't announced. This was all like
you were doing this preemptively, which is smart.
Yeah. So, but we're not even allowed to announce.
You knew that she was leading your band.
Also said we're not allowed to say anything.
Okay, but she wasn't in your band anymore at that point.
Yes.
Yes, she was, or yes, she wasn't in your band. When you were looking for Vicki?
Technically, it wasn't announced yet, but the conversations were had where basically there was no budging on her part, and that she was like, "It's okay, I'll just do both, but you'll have to wait for Arch Enemy to do all their stuff every time." Okay, that's so. But there was no official discussion like,
"I'm leaving."
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So it was just left at, this is how it's going to be, and then us saying, well, that's not good enough for us, and then like a non-answer, and then we just left the meeting.
And then you move forward.
Yeah. So we found that, and then when it was like, okay, this is it, it's like we knew we had her, and it was like, we know this is it, right? There's no way you're going to, like, you're not able to do this for us. You're not able to guarantee us that we'll be able to do this album by X year or anything. Can you guarantee, can we still do the festivals that we have booked already in Europe? We've never played European festivals before, and we have them. No, you can't do that. No, I can't tell you when we're going to do the record.
It must have been hard for her too, though, honestly.
Yeah. No, it's like, look, she got an offer to join a much more successful band than us, and she also was going through the same shit that we were. I was telling you about how she was miserable.
The toxic vibe,
yeah. So it's like, I can't speak for, like, I feel like I'm not sure what I would have done, but I'm pretty sure I would have at least told her about it. That's kind of the
if you crossed her,
you know,
if you actually seen her, maybe. When's the last time you saw her?
I've never seen her since.
Since? No?
Yeah. Everyone else in the band has seen her.
Okay.
And
because you guys were the tightest in the band, I want to think. While you
Me
guys,
and Elisa?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like relationship, she had a person that she had the closest relationship when she was in the band.
I'm not even sure, to be honest.
If she had a relationship.
No, no. I mean, the thing is that because we were the two forces in the band,
maybe that's why I'm
everything,
thinking that.
and when it came down to big decisions, both of us had to okay it. It's we would have the most fights.
So you're business partners.
Yeah,
almost.
but I'm just saying, because of that, just that nature of that, deciding on songs, deciding on decisions, and all, and the fact that we totally did not see many things eye to eye. It just made for arguments to happen. But I wouldn't say, I can't really tell you who in the band would be her closest friend, because it didn't seem like anyone was friends.
It was always a you versus her vibe, maybe.
Not always. There was negativity in the beginning, but it wasn't at all what it was by the end.
Yeah, which is the touring.
I mean, the very first tour, she basically slammed the brakes in the middle of a highway in the United States, jumped out of the van, and ran into the forest. She was driving. She took the key with her
because she was mad.
Because she was mad because someone was not agreeing with what she was saying.
Wow.
And that person's not even in the band anymore.
Okay.
So this was Andrew Tapley.
Yeah.
A short-lived guitar player in the band,
who went on to play with the Human Abstract.
There you go.
Would you tour with Arch Enemy?
Now, no.
No.
It couldn't happen.
If it came out there from her side as if it was she's handled her stuff, would you be able to handle your stuff?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not one to be never forgive or anything like that, which is a title of an Arch Enemy song since she joined. Never forgive, never forget.
It might not be about you.
Maybe.
That you think this song is about.
It could be about a lot of people, but so I'm never like that where I can.
I think.
So I would consider it if there was an open discussion between their band and our band, and there was whatever.
Everything was cool. Yeah.
Yes,
or at least on paper handled.
Yeah.
You walk this way, I walk that way.
Whatever.
You look at the yellow piece of tape on the ground, and I'll look at the red.
I don't want anything like that. I don't enjoy that I have
the drama.
This situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't enjoy. Not only do we live in the same city, we live in the same district of the same city. She lives on my street.
Wow. Okay,
yes, on the other end of it.
I did not know that.
But it's not a long street.
Yeah, I did not know that.
And she hasn't moved.
Okay.
And neither have I. But I've never seen her, which is crazy if you think about it. The fact that my drummer, who lives on the other side of the city, has seen her multiple times on the street.
Wow.
And the last time, I think she crossed the street.
Okay.
So
she's still making it clear.
But then, at the same time, she saw Kells at a show, and there was a bunch of people all around from different bands that everyone knew each other from, lots of different, forget what show it was he was at. And she said hi to him. Okay.
So maybe it just depends.
So.
Well, I hope it all gets settled out.
Well, I mean, I think
because
it is settled in the way
any drama, any toxic energy is only going to hurt in the long run.
Yeah.
You guys are both in happier places.
That's what I think.
She's I can't say much else, but she's fucking killing it. She's a sick vocalist in an excellent band doing sick tours. Mm-hmm. And you guys got a perfect fit now. Who I saw at Heavy MTL, and I told you, she changed her technique a little bit on her screams, and she is as good, if not better, than Elisa now on her screams, and her cleans have always been amazing. So there's no issue there. So you guys are both in happier places. That's
what I think, and that's what I said when I released the statement that outlined the whole thing, the whole drama. That I don't understand why she moved on to a much better place, financially and business-wise speaking, but in every interview that she did, because she did a lot in the first album release that they did, she had to mention all this negativity and purposely put us down and call names and all this stuff. And I was like, I didn't understand how you could be like punching down like that. Like, you decided to take a leap to make yourself better and more popular and advance yourself as an artist. And then you're like mad at us because we're not being your side band. It's like, no, we want to be an A band too.
Yeah, we want to be there with you.
Yeah, that's what we're going to continue to do.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it'd be a sick tour. Arch enemy, the Agonist.
It's funny, before she moved on, it was always a thing that we were like,
it's a goal.
Yeah, that's like obvious. It's like when you tour
like
with Cannibal
Corpse or Behemoth at this point is what I want.
Yeah.
Moving on. Different. What would be like a dream tour? Your perfect tour?
I've been asked this before, and the thing is that it's kind of like a beer, in that there's like your favorite beer, like how much do you like that beer versus how well made is that beer, as a appreciating the brewer who made that. So the way I mean is, like, there's bands that I wish we could tour with because I'm just such a fan and I'm so like in awe of their art and what they do, but for our band it is not actually going to be as beneficial as some other bands would be, because it's all about the audience that attends these tours.
So we could do the two versions: the Danny Marino, as the fan, and then as a business-wise decision,
right? Dream tours. Okay, well, I can't load it up with too many bands.
No, like a package, like a two bands and you guys.
Okay, I'll do what I wish for as a fan would be A Perfect Circle and Opeth.
You can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
But A Perfect Circle playing the old stuff.
I like 13th Step a lot too.
Yeah. That falls into the old stuff in my mind.
Yeah. I'm sad to say I tried with the new album. Some okay tracks, but it's not clicking. It's
not the same vibe, I find.
Yeah,
he's not angry enough.
People.
Still, he's not angry still.
Yeah, but it's not just him. The music too. And Billy is not writing the same
way.
Riffs.
Yeah.
Billy, to me, as much as like Maynard is the star, right, of the band,
but Billy is the heart.
Billy was always what I loved about the band, and as a guitar player and a songwriter, of course, that's why too I have the connection. And he definitely was a huge influence on me as a writer, especially when it comes to parts like choruses and things like that in our band. I pull from them a lot. You won't hear it as much in like the metal riffs, but anyways. So on the other, I don't even know, because the thing is, I'm convinced, and I've even heard this from industry professionals like A&Rs we've worked with and managers, one of the reasons we have had a hard time breaking out of sort of this, like, we're big but not huge, and we're known but not a headliner, is because of the fact that it's kind of hard to package us. Mm-hmm. It's easy to package a band that's really, really like, what they are exactly. It's like a
you're a death metal band. You're
it's like Emure.
Yeah,
straight up hardcore. Yeah, like it's like, of course,
genty hardcore.
So it's easy with us. It's like we move around, we do different styles. We have hooks, and then we have brutality, and we're not the first band to do that by any means, but it is a little even more so than let's say a band that does singing and screaming and heavy and soft like Killswitch or Trivium or In Flames. Mm-hmm. It's still, they go together in a way. It's obvious.
You guys still don't quite fit that though.
Yeah, because they don't. Those bands that I named off, it's very rare that they'll go really off the wall in a progressive way.
Which is leading me in my mind, I don't know if we have the same mind in our band right now.
Right.
Which would be a good band for you to tour with. Which would be Between the Buried and Me.
Yeah.
See, that would be an excellent tour for you guys in my mind.
I still say that as a fan and as a band, I think we would do great with Devin Townsend.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Because there's a lot of people that go see Devin Townsend that are Strapping Young Lad fans.
Yeah.
And we would do fucking amazing with Strapping Young Lad if they still existed.
I miss them.
But they don't. But they still exist when they go to Devin shows. And that's the thing. We would provide that like sort of heaviness aspect and speed that he doesn't really do as much in his music now. But then his fans are clearly open-minded people. You have to be an open-minded listener to love Devin Townsend.
Because you don't know what you're going to get from one song to the next.
That's it. So he's like a really complex assemblage beer,
which is coming up.
That's it. That's what I was hinting at.
So for our next beer, we are drinking now our second beer of the podcast, the Vox&Hops podcast. This is Microbrasserie du Lac St-Jean, and they call it an Assemblage, which means that it is an assembly of beers. And in this beer, there are 5 different types of beers, which they have put together. We have 36%. These are not percentages of alcohol. This is percentages of beer in the total of the beer.
That's what I thought when you showed up, because you pulled it out and you said, well, this one's kind of a heavy hitter, and I saw 36%. I was like, what the fuck's happening?
This podcast is getting wild. So 36% of the total of the 100% of this beer is a triple aged with raspberries. 29% of it is a barley wine aged in a brandy cask. 15% of it is a barley wine aged in a rum cask. 15% of it is a sour white. And 5% of it is a white with boreal herbs, which is like wild local Quebec weeds.
Wow.
You would sort of think, yeah. Let's see what... Cheers, buddy.
It smells wild, that's for sure.
It's going to be interesting. It's complex.
That's great.
Yeah. It's like a little bit of caramel, but not sweet. It's heavy on the alcohol, which is...
Yeah, it's boozy. And it's definitely... I taste that grape. It said white grape, whatever. Mm-hmm. It tastes grape. Like... It's not like... It's like white wine-ish in the back of it. It's not red, but like...
Now, you can taste that the raspberries, too, if you like imagine in your mind as you taste it. Yeah.
Sometimes you need that
visual
cue.
picture.
Yeah. As soon as you said raspberry, it just
the more that I'm going to do this, the more I want to really get my vocabulary out. Describing.
I feel like also it's gonna get more full flavor as it gets less cold.
Normally, I drink these beers.
Yeah, so we can just
temperature.
Drink it slow, and then you get the full effect of both.
Shout out to Brad.
Yes, Mr. Brad Geyer.
That's right. What would be your smart business tour? Dream smart business tour for your fans. Devin Townsend.
I'm thinking about I got a sort of package here in my head. I'm gonna
Gojira would be
finish it off. Yeah, here. Ginger, us, Devin Townsend, Gojira.
That'd be sick. That'd be sick. I'd go to that show.
That would be fucking sold out everywhere. And like I feel like a good 75% of that audience would really love us.
And understand you.
Yeah, they would understand it, and they'd think, and then basically almost everyone in that audience would love every band on the package, and that's rare.
That's true.
When you go to a tour now, it's like, oh, they're here for them, and they're here for them, and and they hate them, and it's like, but that one would be like, every one of those bands has a lot of open-minded fans.
I agree. I completely agree. Out of all the gigs you've done so many in your life, what is the best Agonist show and why? If you had to name one. Out of all,
I gotta say, okay, it's not the best, but the one we just did at Heavy MTL is up there.
It was great.
It's like top 5 for sure.
There was definitely a lot of people in that little garden for you guys there.
Yeah, that's it. Like we definitely, as far as I've heard, had the most people at that stage.
From what I witnessed being there the whole day, because the good beer was being served there.
I spoke to... Yeah, the good beer was there.
Me and Christian Donaldson did not leave that area.
Yeah. I spoke to someone from the organizers, and they told me that. So that was good. But also, it's like, it wasn't just, okay, so we played to a lot of people. We played well, Like, I knew that we played well. I know that there's other, like, shows. We just did a festival out in Finland where it was like a fly in and out to do Finland. We didn't play very well.
It wasn't the same,
like,
performance. You guys just, it's hard to do a one in, one out.
I could just tell that everyone was not, but everyone was just on that show. Like, it was just
that hometown pressure. It really gets me,
I guess. But yeah, it was like, you think it'd be like a little bit of a nervousness, but in a way, because they fed us so well, like, the confidence in everyone just lifted. And a lot of it is confidence. Of course, you have to practice and everything, but if you have a little bit of fear, that's where you're going to make a mistake.
It's the black void. And then as soon as you open the black void, you spiral down its staircase.
Yeah.
That's what happens to me on stage. Yeah, if ever I have what's that? Yeah. Did I suck there? Oh, and then I mess up my next line.
Yeah, exactly.
But luckily I just grunt, so nobody knows what I'm saying anyway.
So anyways, best show, I don't know. I mean, Tokyo, the last time we were in Tokyo was pretty amazing. And Summer Breeze Festival.
Okay.
Off the top of my head.
We had a fun time at Summer Breeze deadlining. Who
was the headliner while you were?
I can't even remember, honestly. I'm on a Marth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
but we played after them, though, even. We were like the last band.
Well, after is better than during.
Yeah, but not that night. There was still nobody there.
Oh.
It was one of those.
We got super lucky when we played Summer Breeze because we played, I don't know if when you played it, they had the same setup. Did they have a tent stage?
Yes, I played that stage, but there was no tent anymore.
Okay, so we played that same stage, but there was a big tent over now. And I say tent for people, it's like, it's massive.
Yeah.
It's still like a probably 8,000 capacity area or something like that. Anyways, so it was full because we got fucking lucky. We went on, we started to line check, we're plugging in our shit, and the biggest fucking rainstorm hits. And the tent just fills to the brim. There's people on the edges trying to get in because of the rain. And then we start.
Nice.
And it's like pure circumstance. And then they stayed. It stopped raining, but they stayed because it was one of those shows where we were really on. I felt like it. And we had Mega, the best sound man in the world, on the desk making us sound better than we are.
Shout out to Mega. Lots of love for Mega. He does sound for Cryptopsy as well.
Inside joke.
Zood. What is your craziest tour story? A positive one. Something that normal people wouldn't understand.
Okay, this one's probably it. I've said it a lot of times, but I guess the podcast is new. We're on a tour. I want to say it was with The Haunted. Yeah. No, it wasn't that one. Anyways, it was around that same time because we had a guy in the band named Chris Adolph, who was the second guitarist. There's 3 guitarists total in that slot. Paco's the official here to stay guy that's been here the longest. But so it was that time, 2009, and it was an off date. I'm pretty sure it was the Haunted tour. It was some tour where we were doing an off date because they're having an off day, but we were going to do a headline in a small bar.
I didn't even know you toured with the Haunted.
Yeah.
Chris Kells must have been so happy. It's like he's the dude that showed me the Haunted. I love the Haunted.
Yeah. The Haunted are, I find, the most underrated Swedish melodic death metal.
I don't know if it's all the member switching. Who was the singer?
Peter Dolving.
No way. He's like a mythical creature, like Lord Worm.
Yeah, exactly. He's a real character. He's the real deal. Like, not in the sense that I think. I'll be honest. Like, I prefer the other singer. I forget his name.
Mike, I think.
Mike.
I want to say his name is Mike.
I prefer his tone of his voice and everything, and how it fits the band or whatever. But Peter has a unique sound and a unique character that, like, he's made for the stage. Mm-hmm. There's some people where it's like natural and it's just like they are born performers, and there's other people where they have to put it on and practice it, and
they're a character on stage.
Yeah.
Versus people that are just authentically that.
He conjures a part of himself into this spirit, and there's people like that.
That's amazing.
And it's really cool. I could see how, though, because of his character, his eccentricities and things like that, if I was in the band with him, I could see how he came and left the band twice.
Day to day might be more difficult. As a fan in the crowd, it's fun, but day to day with a guy like that can end up being difficult. Okay, Okay,
anyways,
so off date of the haunted
off
tour.
date, and the booking agent we had at the time just booked us at this bar somewhere in rural Pennsylvania called The Note. And we're like, okay, whatever. We show up. It's a typical small bar. There's a stage in the corner that's like just enough to hold our amps and drums, and whatever. We're setting up, we're line checking, and then it's like almost doors. And I go to the bar and I sit at the bar and I order a beer. And the bartender says something like to another employee, "Hey, is Bam coming in tonight?" And they're like, "I don't know, man. He's supposed to be here, but I haven't heard from him." Blah, 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 blah. And then, yeah, Bam's. Blah, 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 blah. And then I'm putting together in my head is like Pennsylvania, and I'm like, are they talking about Bam Margera? And I asked, and they're like, yeah, well, he owns the place.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I'm not even like a huge Bam or Jackass fan. I'm just like, oh, I've seen the movies, they're funny. That's cool. Kells is a huge fan.
Yeah.
Not just of the Jackass, but of the skating.
Yeah, on a side note, I've been to Kels's childhood growing up house where he hosted like backyard wrestling events, and I watched him do insane things.
Right.
Which made him jumping off the stage at Heavy MTL the other day seem very like menial.
Of course he did. That's what it is. Of course. That's what I said when I was standing there. We finished, and it just like, we're playing, and then he just out of the corner of my eye, I just see this whoosh.
Oh, you didn't know it was going to happen?
No.
Oh, I thought it was all planned for Ryan and filming. No. Are you sure?
I'm positive.
I'm going to ask him when
and
I have
it's not
him,
the first time he's done this.
Okay.
He's the third time, I think, that he's done this, and every time he doesn't tell anybody.
Oh, okay.
It's so him.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that the thing is that what he did, we self-built this little riser that Vicki stands on the front of the stage, and it's like totally like, DIY MacGyver, like just wood nailed together, like not like some really sturdy supported thing, and it's not nailed into the stage, and there's no front, and it's just out in front. And he ran and kicked off of that to jump over the guardrail, which was like a good 6-8 feet away from the stage
with his bass on,
and it's like he just cleared that guardrail. And that it was more so, I knew that he could make the jump if he ran, but it's the riser thing he kicked off of, which so easily could have just
collapsed,
just not broken, but fell right off the stage.
Okay.
Right?
I just wish I was standing next to. I know the guy that makes his basses.
Yeah,
Pavlo, who's the PhD basses, and I wish I was standing next to him when that happened, because I imagine he would have been more concerned about the bass than Kels.
Yeah,
I just know him so well. Shout out to Pavlo.
Yeah. So going back to the original story, they're like, yeah, he owns the place. And then so I tell the other guys, and like, wow, that's cool. And they said like he might show up or whatever. And then we go on with the night, and the local bands play, and then we go on, and it's about, I don't know, halfway through the set, and then I just look down, and he's right there, like in front, and he's like fucking rocking out to it. He's like really digging it or whatever. And I was just like, whoa, that's cool. Like, and then we get off, and he comes right up to us. He's like, great show, guys. You guys are sick and all this stuff. And goes, you guys, you going to party tonight, or do you have to leave town or whatever? And I'm like, no, well, we're sleeping in town, but we don't know.
We're looking for a place to stay,
we didn't
basically.
Even say that. And then he said, well, where are you staying? And then we said, in our van. And he's like, in your van? It's like, fuck that. You come stay at my place.
That's amazing.
And so
huge mansion?
Yeah, it's the one from the TV show.
Oh shit!
Viva La Bam. It's that house.
That's crazy.
And the thing that's funny about it actually is that I had a huge fever that night because I had caught a major flu.
Tour flu. So much fun. So much fun.
But here's the thing. I still don't know to this day if it was the case, but it was that year that the swine flu was going in the States. So I'm pretty sure it was that. It was like insane heavy flu, but just for like 48 hours, and then I was fine.
Wow.
And so the second day of that was that day, which really sucked.
Did you party
because
or no?
I went and I had a few beers because I'm
but you couldn't let her rip.
To, but I was I was just dying and like on like Advil, cold and sinus and shit. And
that's crazy. Now see, that is a crazy tour story. That you see, normal people wouldn't understand that.
Yeah. So we went there, and then because Simon did party before getting there, and we had to pull over the van so he could throw up right in front of his house. And then he gets back in and we drive in, and it's like he has like a rainbow road that goes into his house. Like it's a long winding road that he painted a rainbow. So
Jesus. Yeah.
And then it's just like a fucking kid's castle. There's like,
it's like Michael Jackson without the touching.
Yeah, there's a giant pool, and then there's huge, of course, half pipes everywhere. And then he's got like
skating.
Yes, and then he's got like ATVs that drive all over the property. He got a golf tee that he tees off into the forest from the top of his, like the front. His house is like up on a hill sort of thing, so from the top of the hill you hit golf balls out. And then he also had,
and Kels loves golf. They must have just hit it off.
Like, you know what that is? It's like a grenade launcher with potatoes. All this like kids, it's like a
rich
store.
Kid's toy.
Yeah, you know, and
store,
then of course there's Lamborghinis and Mercedes and all that. And Chris Adolph, who our old guitarist, drove his Lamborghini through the woods, and they were not legal to drive, and that was kind of dumb, especially seeing as how that's exactly years later how Ryan Dunn died,
passed away.
Exactly
rest
that
in peace. That's horrible.
In those woods.
Oh shit!
But they would do that all the time.
That's horrible. Yeah.
And we went back there probably a good 4 or 5 times.
Really?
Over the years.
Every time you guys crossed through.
He said, and he gave us the code to his gate. He would he would not even be there sometimes.
No way.
Yeah.
And any contact in the past year? When the last time you guys saw him?
No, it's been years.
He's a bit off the map.
He was at my wedding.
He came to your wedding?
Yeah.
It's insane.
And we haven't seen him in many years.
Oh, well, if you're out there, you're listening, Danny wants to connect. Bam Margera. Absolute worst horror tour story.
Okay.
I can imagine what you're going to say, because I know you guys have done some shitty shit, but
probably the first tour
with the deers and the
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's still probably the worst. I mean, there's been bad. You know what? I'll use another one, because I always say that one, which is, in a nutshell, we crashed our van and then we had to get it repaired, and then we drove away, and then we hit a deer, which also broke the lights, and we were driving at night through the Rockies in the snow. Pretty bad, pretty horrible.
Scary.
But I want to
Very scary.
I want to use a different one.
Nobody slept on that drive.
Nope. We played South America, and if anyone remembers, I believe it was 5 years ago-ish, a huge volcano erupted in South America, and it put ash all over the skies, and all the flights were closed down for like 2 weeks. So we were in South America when the volcano went off, and that basically caused us to... I don't think we actually ended up... I think we only canceled one show, because what happened was we were in Chile or something. Anyways, there's a place where you could take like a ferry to go to Montevideo, Uruguay, and there's like
Chile makes sense because it's then down that long.
Other option. Anyways, so we ended up still getting to Montevideo, and then I think we might have had to cancel one Brazil show. We were going to fly back to Brazil and then fly home, and then anyways, that didn't happen. But like, we lived in an airport.
No, for how long?
For 2 days straight.
Oh my god.
And
Vicki or Elisa this?
Elisa.
What did she eat?
I don't know.
Yeah, that must have been something.
I don't know. I don't remember what a lot of it. I remember
how cheap was the beer?
We were getting really stir crazy at the end.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like just like giggling and insanity at like whatever. Because also, even before that, like the South American tour was still really rough in that it was literally...
You don't sleep.
Yeah. You fly every single day and you play every single day.
And they're like, don't worry, you will have hotel, which you just lie down in for like a moment after you take a shower. And then they bang on your door and you have to get back on a plane. It's really... It sounds like fun, and it is fun on stage.
Yeah.
But everything from A to B is painful.
You end up substituting the pain by drinking a lot too, because there's tons of free beer and free alcohol everywhere.
Never ever happens. No.
Yeah. So you're basically drunk and not sleeping and eating weird, and then playing every night, and then shaking a million people's hands,
taking so many pictures,
and so it's like you're also like you're getting this weird adrenaline every day at this high and whatever. Maybe that's helping.
It probably helps on but when you were staying there for 2 days, that's gone.
Yeah.
So
and all of a sudden
and you're like in withdrawal.
Yeah.
Was there beer at the airport?
Yeah, at airport prices.
Okay, even in Latin America.
Yeah. And
South America.
The one good thing, I guess, was that at the end of the day, we ended up getting on a flight. But the way that we did is they bumped us into first class.
No way. I've never flown first class.
Because there was the only time I ever did.
No. All the way home?
Yeah.
Oh, see, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's
well, all the way to, it was like Toronto or New York or something like that.
Still. I've never done it. I did it once, going from France to Belarus, and it was not a fancy first class.
This one was fancy. It had
the little bed capsules things. I never had that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they have real cutlery.
Yeah, they carry.
And like, how is that okay?
Like, who washes that?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like you can't bring anything on the plate. Like, here's a knife. Like, you're first class. You can't do anything
nice and
wrong.
Rounded though. It's like a pizza cutter, basically.
Yeah, it's a butter knives, and a fork's a real fork.
That's
and
true.
You eat out of a real dish, and it was like good food. I had like a ravioli carbonara sauce,
and
it was good.
Someone's grandmother's up there.
Yeah.
Some little Italian
like,
grandmother's
where are they getting this.
What keeps you sane on tour? What things do you do that makes
walk?
You walk?
Especially if I'm anywhere interesting whatsoever, I'm always saying, I'm going to every band member, being like, want to go for a walk? Want to go for a walk? And then in Europe, this time, I didn't do this before, but I started doing it on this last European tour, and I absolutely love it. I started walking by myself and really, really liking that. And it's really like therapeutic and like just clears your head a lot. So walking around some weird European city, especially on this last one, we did a lot of like not A market cities, which as a band you're like, oh, I want to play Paris, why are we playing Nantes or whatever? And then it's like, but the thing is, it's more interesting because it's so like, you walk around Paris, it's like you feel like I'm a tourist.
Yeah, or you're like, it's like almost New York.
But you walk around this small town and it's like, it's not touristy, everything's real. Not everyone's trying to sell you something everywhere you go. It's just real. It's
more authentic, and it's more, you get that actual Europe experience versus the Americanized, picturesque version of what Europe should be.
Right.
Everything that's been in every movie,
Yeah. Not to say that I don't enjoy the big cities too. Like Rome was really
beautiful
great to walk around.
You gotta watch your wallet, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. You gotta get the little inside fanny pack. I don't know what they're called.
We'll call it an inside fanny pack. I want to bring the fanny pack back.
Bring it back.
Especially on tour. It's just such an easy thing to have there and just have all your stuff on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything right there. I think I might. You mentioned before your dream tour.
Yeah.
We were standing together at the end of Heavy Until Day One, and you mentioned that your dream tour would be Opeth and A Perfect Circle, and I threw this at you that I would love to collaborate with you musically. For people at home, we tried to do something in the past, but it was more like in a jam room setting with other dudes, and the other dudes are great players, but maybe they weren't the perfect fit, or I wasn't in the perfect frame of mind. I was doing a lot. I was in many bands, and I was just like, let's just do it all. I was just pedal to the metal, and maybe I was a bit too stretched to be super focused, and I said I would
for me.
Love to do A Perfect Circle, Mare de No meets Opeth Damnation crossover songs, because you mentioned to me before too earlier this year that sometimes you're writing riffs and you're like, no, that's too Tool-y, because Tool riffs are actually a style now.
Yeah.
And you say, no, I can't use that, I throw it away. And in my mind I was like, don't throw it away, give it to me. So this is my pitch. Shoot me some songs if ever you have some time, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be anything super concrete. We just throw them out there and see if something happens.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we just finished our record, so I'm sure I won't be writing for the Agonist for quite some time.
That's perfect. And I just finished my screaming for a while, so I can save my pipes for you. They're going to be a little bit of screaming, but it's sort of hard for me not to scream. But
like echo yell screaming.
Anything's cool, yeah. Inter Arma. I like that shit. What was it like recording 5 in LA? It's my dream, and many musicians' dream, to be immersed in a studio for a month in LA with a producer,
Mike Plotnikoff.
Exactly. And, you know, you're like totally there. You're all a part of this process. What was that like? Yeah.
It was really cool. It was a learning experience too. It was cool to be immersed, like you said, and we didn't just record all, you know, at the studio and all that. We lived in his house.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it was, and like just feeling completely detached from everything else during it is really cool and helpful, and it taught us too about like working with someone else and like taking someone else's views and all that kind of stuff.
Was he like an extra band member during this period?
Not as much, but I mean, he was definitely he produced. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
He likes to put his stamp on the bands. He's not just recording them. He's not. Okay. He puts his opinion out there. He's not afraid to do that and to get into debates with people about that. I'll say that I didn't always agree with his, and some of the things I still don't agree with. Sometimes some of them I listen back after, and then I do agree when I didn't at the time.
Now with a maturity,
it's like that's what that is, though. That's what that process is, and but it was good of us to experience that, and you know, I would do it. I would consider doing it again, you know, with a different producer or something in that same scenario if it made sense to, or whatever. We were more than thrilled to work with Chris again on this one. And what I told Chris too is that the thing is that on the last one we didn't work with him, but I'm happy that we didn't, because that wasn't the record for him. Whereas this one is the record for him. It was made for him.
Excellent.
And he loves it. And I knew he would. And
yeah, he was totally showboating it the other night, like showing me clips in my ear from his iPhone. You know, that's how excited about this he is. That's great, because you did like every other record with Chris. Chris helped you get signed.
Yeah.
Well, it must have been hard for even you guys.
Extra band member. That's the truth.
It must have been hard for you guys to not go with him that time.
Yeah.
And that was a napalm decision?
It was a napalm suggestion, which we took and I took and went with. I'll take the responsibility there.
It's hard to say no to, because that immersive in the studio. Was it hard coming home after that? It's always nice to come home and be with your family.
Yeah, well,
that's not what I mean. Like to come back to reality.
Well,
when you
the
come
thing
back
is
from
that what happened was at the end of the recording, my wife and Simon's girlfriend flew down.
And you guys stayed.
We stayed in LA for 5 days.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So we capped it off with a mini vacation.
So coming home must have been even harder. But at least when I'm coming there, it's like a bit of dose of reality.
Yeah, that's it. And it's always weird coming back.
That first day in the office.
Exactly. That first day back, and you're just like, oh, we're out of milk. I have to do that.
I forgot to take the garbage out before I left.
The cats need to eat.
Yeah.
You know, all these things.
What can we expect from this new album?
I find it's a culmination of our trajectory, in that if you listen to Lullabies, you hear this dark chaos that is like a whirlwind, and you're like keep bouncing between things, and it's all over the place, sort of. So it has that intensity, but now with a more evolved, like the songwriting, which you hear more on like 5 and things like that, that's very cohesive and gelled and fluid, and
but applied to that dark chaos,
to the intensity and chaos and darkness.
That's very interesting,
right? So it's controlled chaos.
There you go.
So that's, I find it really represents us fully.
When do people get to hear this? In a perfect world.
In a perfect world, we would release some form of it before the end of the year. Like, not the album, but perhaps a song.
Well, excellent. Fingers crossed that I get my shit together and that this comes out before that. Because Danny is the number one podcast I've ever done.
Number one?
Yeah. I'm number one. Oh, thank you very much.
Wait, you have to try the beer now that it's warmer.
You're right. We're going back to our beer, which is the Assemblage from Microbrasserie du Lac St-Jean, which is got the 5 assemblies of different types of beer. It still smells amazing.
Yep, sweeter. I knew it. A lot sweeter now.
Sweeter, but not like...
Sugar sweet, not like sugar syrup sweet. But sweet how like a whiskey is sweet.
Exactly, yeah. It's really delicious. No, I strongly suggest it. Hopefully it will still be out when this comes out too. Anything, final thoughts? Something you want to add?
I'm just really happy that you chose me to be the first podcast.
It was just easy. It was
conversation
easy.
here.
Yeah, it was easy. Hopefully it works. We'll listen back to it, and we'll see something came out of it. Thank you all for listening, and I'll come back with my final thoughts in a moment. Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening to the very first episode of Vox and Hops. I had a blast getting to talk to Danny, finding out things that even I didn't know happened. You know, it's interesting that you can know someone so well, and when you sit down with them for an hour, you end up digging up information that you didn't even know about. So if you have any future ideas and suggestions for the podcast, such as who I should interview, what beers are your favorites that you wish that I would explore and share with some of my friends in the future, please send all your comments to matt@voxandhops.com. On the next podcast, I sit down with my bandmate Christian Donaldson, who is not only a prolific guitar player, but he also runs one of the best metal studios up here in Montreal called The Grid. So stay tuned and catch episode 2 of Vox and Hops.